These awards, as you know, are a celebration of achievement, effort, change, innovation, management, insight, and the many other traits necessary to sustain a proud profession like midwifery and consistent services in maternity.
We invite people to nominate a colleague or a student or a manager, whatever, where they think that person's real trailblazers.
And it's really a celebration of all that's good in midwifery and maternity care.
They recognise individuals, they recognise teams, management and educators. Anyone who values excellence and makes improvements. They are essentially a celebration of all of your achievements. So, shall we get on with it? What you do with your day-to-day lives, I just admire you hugely. If you do want to nominate a colleague, a friend, maybe yourself, please speak to the organisers and visit the website, and I really hope that we'll see you at that.
Okay, now the first award is. What's
nothing, I don't know.
We have had a 40% caesarean section rate in the National Maternity Hospital. That is major abdominal surgery.
Around 40,000 mums did not return to work in 2022. It's even more relevant if you're a mum who's experienced birth trauma.
We spend more money on litigation than we currently spend on the maternity services. It's bonkers.
It's in all of our interests, and particularly the government, to improve maternity services.
We can't achieve our mission unless we bring parents and professionals together.
A revolution needs to happen. We need to start working together.
I know it's a hard time, but for goodness sake, it's the best profession in the world.
Be proud to be midwives. Be proud of the job that
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's Maternity and Midwifery Hour. My name's Sue MacDonald, and I'm the curator for the Maternity and Midwifery Hours and the Maternity and Midwifery Festivals. And it's my pleasure to be chairing this session this evening, which I know is going to be really, really interesting. And even if you haven't thought about starting a business, this is going to be helpful to you as a midwife, or as a student midwife, come to that. Now, I'm welcoming now Dr. Denise Tiran and Diane Garland, who are with us this evening. And of course, we always ask our guests for a moment of the week to share with us. And I'm going to start with Diane, because I think she might have more than one.
Well, the quick one is the text being playing up for me this evening. So Angelo is very kindly going to forward my slides. So I'm sorry about that, because I keep saying forward slide, next slide. But that's the slightly not so positive, and just goes to show for anyone, tech can go wrong. But the more positive, I've had two wonderful conversations this last week with colleagues internationally who I've missed sorely. So Melissa Avery, who's Professor of Midwifery in Minneapolis in the USA, who has become grandmother for triplets who are now 2.5 years old. So that's a real pleasure, and hopefully get out to America at some point and see the triplets. And the other wonderful bit has been with Serene Carter-Davis, who is a senior midwife stroke government midwife or advisor in Anguilla, one of the tiniest islands in the Caribbean. So I've done that part of the world, and next week I'm doing India. So it's going to be a very international week for me, which anyone who knows me, traveling, meeting colleagues abroad is my real passion. So they're my positives.
Fabulous. And that, do you know, as you're talking, it really reinforces how wonderful it is to be a midwife with a family of midwives all over the world. That's fantastic. Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, how about Denise? Can you share a nice moment?
Yes, I've been spending quite a lot of time in my business working on the marketing side of things. And over the last sort of year or so, I have been working on the social media. I have somebody who does that for me now. I've been doing some paid advertising, and I have recently taken on a PR consultant to promote me. So I have just been invited to write an article for a parenting magazine in Ireland, and we're looking at a possible TV appearance. I did many years ago, I did some, but I haven't done anything since I started my business. So I'm quite looking forward to that. And then the other thing is I've had the week from hell, actually. It's been really busy. I've had days where I've had solid meetings on Zoom, and then today and tomorrow I'm teaching on Zoom all day. Today's been a lovely day, but at the weekend we are going away with some friends for a 4-day break away in Stratford. So I'm looking forward to that.
That sounds very civilized, Denise. That's really nice. Gosh, and you really appreciate it after a week like this. Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's lovely. Okay, well, I'm just going to welcome everyone again. I know there's some new people with us, as well as our usual loyal crew behind there at home, wherever you are in the world. Do share where you are, because Paul feeds that through to me, and it's always interesting to know where our guests, or where are not your guests too, where you're all from, because it's really interesting for us. And I'm just going to remind you where we came from, and I always say this, but the Maternity and Midwifery Hour came and was started and born right at the beginning of the COVID-19 first lockdown in March 2020, which is 5 years ago. And initially this was very much for people to connect, for midwives to connect, for students, midwives and doulas and healthcare support workers, and mums actually joined us as well. And initially we did a lot about COVID-19 and the sort of things midwives and students were having to do to keep on providing services on one side, and also following their education and getting their experience on the other side. And it was a difficult time, and people did fantastic things, and we shared a lot of those on the Maternity Hour, which was lovely. And now we're doing different things, and so not COVID so much, but more things that just are really interesting or might be really useful for our audience. And I really felt this topic tonight would be really helpful to make us all a little bit more business-like, a little better at things like networking, just some key things to think about. Anyway, the other thing is, just to remind people, everything from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum is recorded. So if you should have an IT breakdown, if your computer should die, it's not a problem. You can catch up a bit later. You'll get a link over this next week or on Friday, and you can catch up then, or you can go into the Matflix, which is on your resources sheet, and catch up. The Matflix is a fantastic resource. We've got loads and loads of fantastic presentations on all sorts of topics. So if you're doing dissertations, projects at university, if you're doing a project in the maternity unit, or you want to bring something into your maternity unit and you don't know how to go about it, or you need information, this is the place to go. The Matflix link is on that list of resources. Health warning for you, it's a bit addictive once you get in there. You might start off just having a little look, at one presentation, maybe the last one that Denise did or the last one that Diane did on waterbirth, and then you get addicted, and 2 hours later you're still watching. But it's fantastic. It's very good. Also for revalidation, fantastic. So that's my approval of the day, really. Okay, just a little bit of a news feature now. Pride Month for LGBTQ plus this month. So there's going to be lots of activities. Now, I know there's usually lots of quite jolly marches going on, which you probably know more about it than I have. I haven't had time to sort of rootle through that. I did find the new NICE, National Institute for Health and Care Excellence 2025 has got an updated maternity and child nutrition guideline, and there is a discussion podcast, which I haven't accessed before. It's really good. They just tell you, they sort of highlight key things for us. Really interesting. So that's worth going to, and that's again is on your resources. But yeah, the actual guidelines have been updated, so that's really helpful. Also, there's quite a bit of things going on with the Royal College of Midwives website. Claire Livingston has been updating the RCM's work on maternity care for women with disabilities and improving the care for them. And those of you at the RCM conference in Birmingham will have heard a really good round table with Dr. Maria Tidball, the MP, talking about her experience in maternity care, and Kath Riley and Dr. Anna Cox regarding the Together project. Really interesting, and they're very much involved in this work. So it's useful, just keep an eye on that. There's also a maternity and neonatal safety summit in July, which is being led by the RCM, and it's going to be addressed by Wes Streeting and chaired by Sean Linton, who some of you will know from as an editor of the Sunday Times. And the other hot topic that I know I was interested in, I know Diane and I know Denise will be interested in this also. The RCM have just been highlighting the difficulties for students. And we've talked a little bit about that over the last couple of weeks, but it's quite a worry that students are finishing their course and then not necessarily getting a job. And it's a big stress. And if you think back, those of you midwives, to when you finish your training and were you going to get a job, weren't you? You didn't usually have to worry too much a few years back, and now it's a big worry. And they're saying that 8 out of 10 students are not confident that they're going to get a job. And that's appalling. You think about 8 students out of 10 who might not get a job. That's really worrying. So there'll be more about that. And I know that Fiona Gibb from the RCM has been speaking on Sky, and there's been some media interest. I think over the next few days there'll be more interest. So you never know, you might be invited on a radio programme to talk about it. And if you have a view, give your view. I think you might get the confidence for this evening. So almost exactly on time, I've come to the meat of the day. Now we're looking at midwives and business skills and business acumen, and looking at setting up a thriving business. Now, you might not all want to go into business, but our speakers are going to give you some real good insights into the skills, the knowledge, the kind of confidence and networking skills that you need when you set up as a business. And those are important for us as midwives, because we need to kind of sell ourselves anyway to say what we do. And I always think about Caroline Flint talking about every day you should tell at least one person you're a midwife and what that means, because we need to share, because a lot of people don't know. So I'm really thrilled that I've got 2 such smashing speakers this evening. And I'm going to make a huge welcome to Dr. Denise Teran, who's the internationally renowned authority on midwifery complementary therapies. She has a company who many of you will have heard of, The Expectancy, which is a fantastic name for it, in its 20th year. I don't know how it can be that old, but it's been around and very unique in its range of courses for midwives in the UK and overseas. Now, Denise has been awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of Greenwich and the prestigious fellowship of the RCM in recognition of all her work in this specialist field. And it is an incredible amount of work that Denise has done. She's also done research and written numerous books on the subject, including Complementary Therapies for Post-Dates Pregnancy, 2023, and 6 editions of the world-famous Balliers Midwives Dictionary and the Royal College of Midwives' new Complementary Therapy Guidelines for Midwives. And she's going to tell you about the other book she's done also. So welcome, Denise. Thank you so much for coming. The screen is now yours.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you very much for asking me again. It's absolutely lovely to be here, and it's particularly nice to be doing this session with my friend and colleague Diane, who we've known each other for a very long time, when we were at the University of Greenwich, I think, or possibly before. So it's great, and actually our paths have worked very similarly. They've almost worked in tandem, really. So I'm just going to go to the slides. Hopefully you can see that now. And what we wanted to talk about this evening was our sort of journey into private practice, bearing in mind that practice does not always mean clinical practice, and some of the tips that we've gained from our experiences and how we might actually be able to pass those on to you. Now, I know that working for yourself is not for everybody. And, you know, if I just tell you a little bit about my journey, I trained as a nurse at Barts in London, and then straight into midwifery, because midwifery was what I always wanted to do. That little photograph there is me 50 years ago. Would you believe it? We've just had our 50th anniversary of starting nurse training. But I went into midwifery. I worked on the community for a while, and then I decided to go into teaching. And once you become engaged in teaching midwifery, you are often given opportunities to develop areas of interest. And I fell into complementary therapies and was able to develop it as a specialism. I was in the right place at the right time. I ran a degree in complementary therapies at the University of Greenwich, and then after a while I decided to become a freelance lecturer, which was about the scariest thing I had ever done, I have to say. But I'm still here, nearly 21 years later, and so I feel I've done something right. And I think it's important to make sure that your career follows a path that suits you. It suited me. I don't think I would want to go back to being employed, but it is jolly hard work starting your own business, and it's well worth it in the end. I have to say that it truly is well worth it in the end. What is happening at the moment, I think, is that we are seeing a sea change in the way that midwifery care is being provided. And we know we don't have to talk about some of the difficulties that people working in the NHS have. I think that goes without saying. But so many of us want to continue working as midwives. We want actually to return to what midwifery is about. And it's a good opportunity to consider whether you would like to continue working in the way you always have worked, whether you can do something within the wide profession of midwifery in which there are many, many specialisms, or whether you're ready to make that move from being employed to being self-employed. I would say, however, it's really important that you're not running away from something that's currently not quite right for you, but that you are running towards something you want to do. So this requires a very definitive decision, and it's got to be right for you and your family, actually. It can be extremely fantastic to work for yourself. You're your own boss. You may have a better work-life balance. You can certainly return to the nurturing of midwifery. You can pick out, you can choose the bits that you like doing, and maybe develop areas of specialism within antenatal care, postnatal, perhaps birth. I mean, I'm not particularly talking this evening about being an independent midwife offering birth services, but the principles apply across the board. And we're seeing many midwives going into antenatal education, complementary therapies, maybe doing training in tongue-tie division for babies, maybe setting up yoga classes for pregnancy and that sort of thing. And I think it's really important that if you do decide to work for yourself, you've got to do something you really like doing. There are always bits in any job at all that we don't like doing. And the bits that we do like doing, those are what we need to focus on, because going into your own business is not an easy option. It's actually jolly hard work. And I think both Diane and I would say we've probably worked harder than we've ever worked before, but it's so worth it. It really is. I think the biggest challenge is getting to grips with the business, the theory and the practice of running a business, because it's something that certainly in the UK NHS, we are not taught about. Personally, I feel that we should now be including in midwifery education the opportunities for midwives to devolve into different areas of practice, to specialise, to work either in the NHS or for another employer, or to work for themselves. However, if you do work for yourself, it can be a little lonely, and therefore it really is important to make a network, both of midwifery colleagues, but also of business colleagues. You know, we love talking, don't we? All midwives love talking. I can never shut up groups of midwives who are on my study days. And that's great, because we're all of the same mind, really. But I think it's really important when you're in your own business, working for yourself, to foster those networks, to meet like-minded midwives, and also to make some business connections. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing. In our area, we have women's only business networking groups. There's one that's called Ladies Who Latte. And basically you turn up at a coffee bar, buy a coffee and chat to everybody and share your networking and what you do, that sort of thing. I think the other thing is that there are an awful lot of conflicts of interest. It's probably one of the biggest subjects that we talk about on the expectancy business training. Conflicts between remaining in the NHS and working part-time in your own business, conflicts between taking money for the services which hitherto might have been free at the point of access for NHS people were seeking NHS care, and a variety of other things. And that's something that has to be addressed under the NMC code and the legalities of business. What could you offer? You could do all sorts of things. It could be complementary therapies, which of course is my specialism. It could be baby care. When Diane and I first were midwives, postnatal care was wonderful. If you were on the community, you did twice daily visits for 3 days, weekly visits for another week, daily visits for another week, and then weekly to 28 days. And that's unheard of now. And yet it really fulfilled, you know, what parents wanted and what we wanted to provide. So there's a wide spectrum of standard maternity care, but also those specialisms, whether it is caring for particular groups of parents with specific needs, whether it is focusing on antenatal education, or some of the other elements of care, lactation support and things like that. The world's your oyster. And do remember, and I always say, midwifery is not an extension of nursing. It's a profession in its own right with many, many different options within it. I just want to spend a couple of minutes on debunking myths about working privately. You are allowed to do it. The NHS doesn't own you, even though you have completed midwifery education, pre-registration education within the NHS. Your license to practice on qualification enables you to practice midwifery in any way and anywhere you choose to do that. And that means equally you are entitled to work in private practice. You can practice true holistic nurturing midwifery, but you do have to give some time and attention and energy to working on the business. That means things like marketing, your accounts, buying equipment, whatever it might be. And that's really important too. People often think that going into private practice means you've got a better work-life balance. And certainly you can arrange your work commitments around your family life, for example. So if you want to collect your children from school in the afternoon, or you want to go to the Christmas show that the children are putting on, you can do that. But have to say you probably worked really hard, perhaps harder than you've ever worked before, in order to get your business up and off the ground and well established. And then people worry, can you earn enough? Well, yes, you can, but you have to make a decision whether this is going to be your main way of working, whether it's going to be a top up to your NHS salary, or whether it's simply going to be a bit of a hobby. And any of those is fine, depending on what your personal and family circumstances are. But if you're wanting to earn the equivalent of your midwifery salary, you have to work at it quite hard. And that means pricing your services appropriately. I think we're not very good at working out the money. Obviously, it's really important to be up to date, an expert in your particular clinical area of midwifery, and making sure that you are as good as you possibly can be in order to offer this service to fee-paying clients. Just to note that if you want to have the word midwifery or midwife, which is a protected title in law in the UK, if you want that in your business name, you have to get permission from the NMC to use it. They're very unlikely to object, but you do need to get that permission. And you need to address these conflicts of interests. And then you have to get to grips with all the marketing stuff. That's the hard bit, really, I would say. When you are setting up your business, you need to think about the money right from the start. It's something we don't really like thinking about or talking about in NHS midwifery. If you're in a different country, you may be more familiar with a variety of services where people do pay for what they want. But you have to take on board the cost it will be to set up your service, all the things that you need, the equipment, your training if you need extra training, your insurances, your NMC registration, your marketing, your social media, everything. And you have to work out then how much do you need to earn in order to cover your costs and to make money? Because you're not doing this out of the goodness of your heart. Let's face it, people go into business, rather cynically I'm saying this, they go into business to make money. And we as midwives have never had to do that really, and we want to care for people. But time is money, folks. Time is money. I'm always saying that to students on our business training. So the most important message here is don't undervalue yourself. You are worth it, as they say in the advert. We're worth it. And you have to price your services accordingly. And that might seem quite a lot when you first start. But actually, if you start low and then try to increase them, it's much more difficult. So you have to price your services realistically and not worry that people won't pay them. They will. If it's what they want, they will certainly pay them. And then just a few top tips for starting your journey towards being self-employed. Really important to do it for the right reasons. So I would suggest discussing your thoughts and plans with your family. You need them on side because it's going to be hard work to start it up. So you've got to do it for the right reasons. That also involves saving now for getting your business off the ground. You can usually offset any costs of extra training and all your equipment. You can offset it against the tax that you might have to pay for working in your business. But start putting some money away now if this is an aim of yours to set up in business, so that you're not scrabbling around for money when you actually need it. I would say be professional from the start. Don't be amateurish. Don't try and do things that you're no good at or you don't want to. Ask other people to help you if you need that help, because you only have one chance to make a first impression. So get somebody to help you with your website and your logo design and things like that. Preparation is absolutely key. So don't rush. You might be full of enthusiasm, and that's brilliant. We need enthusiasm, we need motivation. But if you rush it, you will make mistakes. And as I said earlier, value yourself. Never, ever, ever, ever undersell yourself. You're paid for your services when you work for the NHS or any other maternity service provider. You are paid for it. You don't do it free of charge, do you? And you have to get used to the idea that you are now charging for your services. So that's my take on things. I know Diane's going to touch on a couple and carry on with this discussion. I am happy to chat with anybody online if you're interested in business training or complementary therapy training. But obviously, if you want to go it alone, that's also absolutely fine. So thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you, Denise. That's and I think as you were saying things like tax, that's a sort of that's a bit of a scary one.
Oh,
we
it
might
is.
have some questions on that later. So we'll put you on the spot for later. Fabulous. But we'll move on to Denise now. If you have any questions for Denise, put them in the chat box now, and they'll come through to us at 1:45. So in the meantime, I'm delighted that we have Diane Garland with us, a very energetic, enthusiastic midwife, one of the leaders of water birth practice and education, and she began her own company in 2005, Midwife Expert, allowing her the freedom to explore midwifery with a global perspective. And you've already got a feel of the global passion that Diane has, whilst focusing on areas of practice innovation, development and education. And Diane teaches and presents in the UK and globally, and is also consulted internationally, as well as offering other specialist services such as expert legal work, witness work and care quality commission inspections. She also has a lot of other professional roles. Now, I should have said right at the beginning, the full CVs are all online. I'm giving edited highlights here. Also, and I'm not sure if Diana will mention this, but she's an author of a water birth book, and there's a book in the making at the moment, very much at the moment, which I'm sure she'll share with us. So welcome, Diane. The screen is now yours.
Thank you. And that's via Angelo, because, as I said, my biggest fear happened that the tech went wrong. So please bear with me as I have to ask him to carry on with another slide. Before I do, I'd just like to say, yes, Denise and I have known each other a long time. I'm about 18 months behind Denise's setup business. Mine was October 2005, which actually I launched at a particular time, which would have been my mum's birthday, although sadly she'd passed away 3 years earlier. So it's a very special time for me, always in October. What I have done is put together, and there will be some overlap because both of us, work as business women. But what is new for me, one Sue's already mentioned, is the new book, which I'm going to get self-published. So that's a whole new world for me. It's very difficult now to get textbooks published. So I'm going to go it alone and self-publish. So watch this space. I'm hoping to have that completed probably by, well, let's put November on. That's the date then. I've also rebranded. I've now got someone working with me who's rebranded. And I think Denise did say it, but if not, I'll say it again. What you can't do yourself, get someone else to do. And that goes back again to the costings. There's no way I could have redesigned my website the way it looks now to where it looked over a year ago. So please don't be afraid. There are people out there who they're very quick because this is what they do for a living. Next slide, please, Angelo. So I started off with a vision. I had decided that all the teaching I was doing and other things I could actually put into a business. So I had to look at what they call your USP, your unique selling point, and have a business plan. It was very small at the beginning. I had help with that. I'll tell you how in a moment. But one thing I had to get my head around was a professional image. And I'm not talking about how I come across being honest and welcoming and evidence-based, but even simple things like what I wear. I wear different outfits for different roles. And I've put some photos in, so you'll see that. I just highlighted a couple. One was about being proud and realistic. And in all my books, I've always put that I know my parents would be proud and realistic. And Denise kindly mentioned about families as well, and they always get a mention, because without my family support, this would never ever have happened. They're there when I need them. They're at the back. I don't know if my family are watching tonight, but they may well be. If not, they'll hopefully catch it up later. What we didn't really mention was about how you set your business up. Now, I'm a sole trader. There is only me. Succession planning, Denise and I have talked about a lot, because we're both getting a little more mature, and we both who's going to take over. You know, are we going to sell the businesses to someone else, or how are we going to do it? So you're not all going to be at that age yet, but you know, this is 20 years. So I was sort of mid-40s when I started. Well, you can guess now I'm mid-60s, and at the moment I still have the passion I had at the beginning, but I'm realistic as a sole trader, and there are, as you can see on that, lots of other options, but that's where I am at the moment. I'm a sole trader. Next slide, Angela. So knowing your customer base, and again, I'm only going to pick out a few bits from this because it's available for anyone to look at. The advertising and marketing, and I have to thank Denise, she's been really good at nudging me to be out there. I am very realistic, but I'm not always good. And even though I've been doing it for 20 years, about saying, you really want me because... And I'm getting better at it, but we're not used to that in the NHS. We don't know, you know, my antenatal class is as good as someone else. No, it's not. That's why you want me. So it's selling ourselves, which we've never been good at doing in the NHS. It's never been something that we thought, you know, we should be doing. The website I mentioned, social media, I've got better over the years. I'm on most social medias now, but they're not my pet favorite thing to do, so I have to nudge myself every now and again to do it, but it's out there and at least people can keep in contact with me. Where to work? Now, this is my home. This is my spare bedroom with lots of Indian scarves behind me, because I like colour. I'm a real colour person most of the time. So this is sanctuary to me, but this is work. I will probably be in my office by 8 a.m. most mornings, checking emails, because they come obviously from all around the world. So time differences and everything. Even as I know Denise has done, we get up at weird times to do teaching, which fits in with them, and we vice versa. So I've certainly been teaching at like 6:45 in the morning, UK time, and also at 10 o'clock at night. So it isn't a 9-to-5 job, even though we are, you know, self-employed. Costing, Denise said, not just costing ourselves, but all the equipment. I don't think we really appreciate simple things like costing of photocopying, if that's your thing, although nowadays most people don't tend to photocopy much. You know, I can send it out on an email, but having a separate phone, which I do for work, I don't have the same one, so home and work are separated. But all the equipment, one of the tech problems today, I think, is because my poor computer's getting old. So I have a new one on order. I'll have to shut everything down while it's upgraded for me. But my tech guy hopefully won't be very long doing that. So equipment is expensive, but there are good deals out there. You know, don't just jump in and go straight to, where can I think, John Lewis and buy it. Check it's what you need for the future, not just the now. This computer I've had for about 12 years. So I know, yeah, Denise is going, oh, well, but it's coming to the end of its life, and I know that. So it'll find a home somewhere else, I'm sure. Next slide, Angela. So I have three main areas of my business. Education is one of them. And I am very fortunate. I used to say lucky, but you put yourself where you want to be. And so I do a lot of UK education, which is diversifying and has done and will be this year, but also beyond. And if you look at the photos, you can see certainly in the middle, I'm wearing something very different. That is in Barbados, where I went last December to teach for a colleague. Which was fantastic, but rather hot for me, especially for teaching. The bottom left is China. You'll see again, different outfit because it's a different environment. And bottom right is India. And for me, it's not just about how I portray myself in my clothes, but also having great respect for the cultures I'm working with. What I wear one place, I wouldn't wear somewhere else. So it's being very aware of that. And that takes some looking into before you go. I always ask my host, you know, what is and what isn't appropriate, as they usually do with me. Simple things like what would you and wouldn't you eat, but certainly being aware of where you're going. The reason I said diversify is the conference top left, which as you can see is called the National Back Exchange Conference. So that is for moving and handling nurses. I've never been invited before, so I'm doing a semi-practical because it's a hotel, so we can't set up a proper birth pool with water, but we'll do the closest we can for them, because they say as nurses they get asked a lot about how can they safely look after a woman if they need to get her out, particularly in an emergency, which is rare, but it can happen. How would they safely get the woman out the pool? And then on the right is another one, which I just did on Zoom last year, but this year I'm going, and it's to Brazil. And it's called Ciaparte. It's a big conference, lots of doctors. I do teach whoever, doctors, doulas, nurses, students, midwives, obviously, parents. But this will be my first time in a big audience, and I know it's big from last year's on Zoom, so that's going to be interesting. Long way to fly, but I shall go and hopefully get some other teaching as well. Thank you, Angela. So again, Denise has mentioned some of these, but data protection, very, very important. And what we have in the UK with the GDPR legislation is different to what they have abroad. So if, like myself and Denise, we both work abroad, you need to be very aware where the data protection is. If people email you, you do need to get permission, even in this country, of course, to hold on to those emails. So that's something we've built in with my web designer into the new website. So if people go via the website by putting an inquiry into it for whatever role, that by default means they've given permission. If you subscribe for the newsletter, and subscribe doesn't mean pay, it's just how it's written, then by default, again, you've actually said, I'm happy for me to have your email address. And that was something I learned quite early on. Denise mentioned, and I will briefly, conflict of interest. Certainly when I started, I was teaching water births both in the hospital, but I was also teaching a lot externally. And I declared that when I went to a different hospital when the business started. I was very open, very honest, and said, you know, this is what I'm doing, and therefore there may be, but they didn't find there was any conflict at all. So that was useful. Ongoing education, again, Denise mentioned, but for me, because of my different types of job, I have to do not just my normal professional, but I have to do legal education, as you'll see in a moment, and also business education. So there is a lot to it. As Denise said, this is not an easy option, depending on, you know, which avenue you go down with running a business. We mentioned the dreaded tax returns, but you do have to do them, and it varies from practitioner to practitioner. I do my own tax returns out of interest. I've always done my husband's as well. So tax returns, because I'm a sole trader, is probably easier than I'm sure Denise's would be. But, you know, you have to work that through, what works for you. I don't find them a problem. I'm very efficient. As soon as I come back from anything, I'm on doing my monthly accounts, and I keep, I think Denise and Sue knows this, I love coffee. So every cup of coffee I buy, I keep the receipts. So usually that's the hardest thing, adding all the receipts up at the end, because this is my subsistence away from my workplace. You know, in the NHS, you hopefully get the chance just to go to the kitchen where you work and have a cup of coffee. Well, yes, I can do that here, but if I'm out in the big wide world, I have to buy what I want. So subsistence is also important. And the final one for me is DBS checks, police checks as they used to be called. They're not expensive. They're about, I think I'm just about to pay for next year's. I think it's £13 or £16 a year, but you should register. And obviously, yes, we do. Next slide, Angelo. So this is another of my roles. I do legal work for both the NHS and also for private solicitors. I suppose the good news for me, I hope that's because I'm selective in which cases I accept. And that means sometimes saying I don't believe there is a case. I do that a lot as well, sadly, where parents think there's a case, but in my professional opinion, there isn't. But also the main thing is not working out your scope of practice. Solicitors and barristers are very good at business, very good. They're often big companies with lots of people behind them. So I think you have to be initially very, very strict about what is your known scope of practice. I know what mine is, and therefore I know, what can I think as an example? I wouldn't do anything about screening. I've never been a screening midwife. I can tell you, you know, the basics that we all know as midwives, but I'm not an expert in neonatal screening. So I would never do a screening legal case. So yes, working within your scope of practice. And you can see hopefully in that photo, that's one of the expert witness conferences that are run every year up in Westminster, sitting there very cool, but in a very different outfit to what you've seen with the other things. That's sort of my more businessing, because the people who are going to be there are going to be other experts in other fields, but also the people who go to support it, who are the display people, solicitors, barristers. So I need to, I believe, portray a very different image to what I might have done in China or wherever I am. Thank you, Angela. So what's my best advice? I always think about what's my greatest achievement, and that's been for me selling my services worldwide. Denise said it, you know, there is a money attached to this, but don't rush into it and spend loads and loads of money until you've got your head round where your money's coming in and what needs to go out. I put there my parents because they're both passed away, but I know my parents will be very proud of me, as are, as I said, the rest of my family. Oh, my biggest mistake, not using social media properly, because to be fair, I did my nursing in 1977, qualified in 1980, my midwifery 82 and qualified in 83. Social media was barely there. It may be second nature or even first nature to many of you, but it wasn't for us. We've had to learn and trying to keep up with everything. So that's where you rely on other people. And I've just started to use Instagram, and I've got people helping me with that because I'm rubbish with Instagram, not getting my head around it at all yet. Has my business evolved? Yes, it's diversified, and it continues to diversify, and I suspect it will for as long as I want to run the business. I'm watching the time. Next slide, Angelo, please. Again, some overlap. What's the best thing about working for yourself? Definitely deciding when and how to work and having control over that. Certainly being organised. I'm an old-fashioned lady. I still have a diary, and this will hopefully make some of you laugh. It's all colour-coded because then I know what yellow's holiday. That's the most important thing. But it's all colour coded, so I can get my head round where I'm going to be. And if I'm away teaching, I need, even in the UK, the day before to get there, the day when I get back, because sometimes I don't get back till 10, 11 at night. And if it's a flight, it can be even later. So I make sure those 2 days are clear. And colour coding is my brainwave of how I do it. Causes the most difficulty? Not planning time, because I think I'm getting good at that now, but the regular wage issue. That's what Denise said about making sure, please, you know what's coming in and what's going out. And yes, please put money aside for contingencies and or yes, for that horrible tax bill. I mean, you do have plenty of time, but it's no good, you know, scribbling around on the last couple of days before the tax man's going to say, where's your money? What advice would I give to someone else? Well, the advice I was given, you know, talk to other people and colleagues who are in business. I got a lot of advice in the days when the local council used to run, you know, startup, set up your own business, and met people from all different disciplines, mechanics, ladies who wanted to start flower shops, you name it. And that was really good, because they see things at such a different angle. The NHS, I feel, is so insular and always has been. When you're outside, there's this big wide world out here. So that's what I went to. Have a look, see if there's anything still like that going on. Next slide. Thank you. And that's my final role, acting as a consultant. The newest thing I've started to do is help people design or redesign their pool rooms. That photograph is from University Hospital in Hong Kong. They had the room with the most amazing view, if you can see it, looking outside Hong Kong Harbour. And they had a pool, but they hadn't quite worked out where everything was going. So this is a new project that I've launched in the last couple of weeks, just to help people, because I've seen some fantastic pool rooms everywhere, all around the world, but I've sadly seen some atrocious ones as well, where the pool's being put in. There's been no discussion with the practitioners who are going to be working there, and the pool rooms are just not fit for purpose. It really is as simple as that. So that's something I've started to offer. Lots of different companies I work with in different advisory capacities and consultancy passages. Maternity Midwifery Forum, who I do work with, Sue and her colleagues. Different pool companies, quite a few of those in the UK. I'm a trustee, something else you may have never thought of, but if you want to look at widen your horizons and put a little toe into a different pool, think about being a trustee. I'm a trustee for Action on Preeclampsia, which was always a passion of mine as a clinician. And I just meet some amazing people. That was in Scotland recently, where we had the Scottish Health Minister come along, and Andy Shannon, who's one of our major medical trustees. Again, I just stand in awe of some of these people, and that's good. It makes you stand back and look at yourself. And then the final bit of that consultancy is abroad. I work with Midwifery Today, who are a journal conference organisers, but I do book reviews, because one of the ways I relax is to read books, but I love medical books. So there's just a tiny selection there. The two at the front, Born Stroppy by Ruth Weston. If you've never read any of Ruth's work, it's great. I'm working my way through it at the moment. And the other is Breaking the Taboo, which is about birth trauma. So I tend to write the reviews. I hang on to them for a couple of months. And then to get that information out again, I then passed it on to my local library where I used to work at the local hospital. So they benefit from books that probably they would never think, and the library would probably never think of buying. So it goes around in circles, and I'm proud of being able to do that for them. And just the final one, Angelo, which will be a thank you and goodbye from me. Thank you. There it is. And again, like Denise said, you're very welcome to contact me. I'm trying to get people now to use the website for the contacts rather than getting lots on personal emails. But I'll either redirect people or deal with it and then say, if you want to contact me again, you can go via the website. And that's my story.
Fabulous, Diane. Thank you so much. And I have to say, I think both of you are very generous with your time and with your support of midwifery in the rounds. And this has been part of that support. Is lovely. And it's lovely to hear your ideas. I just love this ladies who latte. That's one thing I'm taking away. And the social and the thinking about social media, because that is quite a big thing these days. And of course, the women are very into social media because they're of that age, tend to be. And also student midwives are very good on the Instagram, which I still haven't quite got the hang of. So we're all learning, which is what keeps our brains going, which is great. So thank you so much for that. I mean, I had a sort of thought about the tax because I wanted to say one of the things that I always think is if you're having to pay tax, it's a good thing because it means you're earning some money.
Yeah.
But there's no way of escaping the tax man. I have to reiterate this. And this is one
you're
my
right.
mum, who is a tax officer, and my brother, who is also into tax. So don't try and escape. You just need to try and minimize and like Diane talking about coffee receipts, which sounds very small, but a little bit adds up, and it's all the equipment that you need. And Denise, I think, highlighted all what you have to set up right at the beginning of it, and sort of gathering money before you ever start jumping off that step into self-employment, as it were. So I mean, that's really fantastic. And I think the thing I hadn't thought about, and this is for both of you, is the succession planning. I hadn't thought about that because if you're sole trader or your own boss, how would you hand it over? I'll ask Denise for this one first.
Well, it's something that's playing on my mind. I'm actually older than Diane. So health permitting, I have no intention of retiring yet at all. But, as you get older, you do have to start thinking about that. And I would hate to be in a situation where everything that I've worked for and I've been passionate about just dies a death with me, as it were. And I think Diane and we do talk about this. We actually, I have to say, regularly meet at the local garden centre for lunch, and that is a business expense because we spend our time talking midwifery and talking business. And we do talk about succession planning. And it's about trying to get your business into a position where somebody else might want to buy it and take it further forward and build on what you've done rather than damage what you've done. So it's certainly on my mind. And, maybe in the next few years, I shall be taking that further forward.
How about Diane?
Yeah, I think for me as well, I have some wonderful international colleagues. So certainly the education, the water birth side of the role, I have some colleagues I'd be very happy to, take on and do it. There's like a franchise almost, I'm not sure yet. The consultancy work I can do if Zoom wants to behave, and even the designing of pool rooms now, my tech guy can do that. You tell us the size of your room, which pool you've got. Hopefully, as a midwife with 42 years experience, I know what should be in a delivery room or birth centre room, whatever it is, even at home, of course. So that could be done certainly via computer. The legal work, no, because that to me is a very different role. So that probably wouldn't be something I'd be happy to just hand over. But yeah, it is an interesting concept. But Denise is right. We do talk about it a lot and have done for many years. This isn't just because we're getting a little bit more mature. It is something we've talked about seriously for a long time. And you do get people who will say, oh, I couldn't possibly do what you did. And I felt that probably 20 years ago. I was never a quiet little mouse. I was always quite, not quite born stroppy like Ruth Weston, although I do love the title of that book. I'll have to think of a clever one for my new book, won't I?
think so.
But it is something seriously, because not just Denise and I, there are other wonderful colleagues around the country who have set up businesses, and I think we all probably feel the same. We would hate them just to disappear, but it's got to be the right time and the right people. So.
And actually, I guess working alongside, thinking about, what businesses generally do. This is part of the business set in the brain, isn't it?
Yes.
Now I've got a question from Hajera. Hi, Hajera, who says, did you use marketing services, ladies, for your businesses then?
I didn't when I first started, and it took a few years to really get to grips with marketing. I think marketing and pricing are the two most difficult things that I have had to deal with. And I think that's because we come out of the NHS mindset, or even the university mindset, where people don't have to pay you face to face, as it were. And marketing is really important. If you don't tell people that you're there and you can provide a good service that they may want, how are you going to get business? It doesn't necessarily have to be paid for advertising, although more recently I have done paid for advertising. Word of mouth is an incredibly important testimonial, really, for thinking, oh, she's really good, I really liked seeing her, or whatever it might be. My work is entirely in education. I don't do the clinical element that Diane does, not anymore. But whoever is your customer, they need to know you're there, and marketing is incredibly important. But you can do that in various ways. You can network. You can put it on social media, which is free for in many respects. You can pay for advertising. You can do exhibitions and all sorts of things. But I still think that word of mouth is by far the most powerful way of somebody else saying, that was really good. And, then they may want to follow it up.
Yeah, I totally agree with Denise. I mean, I do remember what Caroline said about, every day tell someone you're a midwife. Well, I can assure you, everyone in my village knows what I do. Even, quick funny, because I'm conscious of time, but recently when I was flying to Spain, teaching, and I always have a plastic doll and a make-believe placenta that goes in my hand baggage, because I'd be terrified. Her name's Wendy. And I got stopped. I don't know why poor Wendy always throws the x-ray machines up, but she does. So I'm undoing the suitcase. It's a young man about to search my suitcase, and the first thing he pulled out was the placenta, and he just looked at it, and then of course Wendy's at the other end of it, and he said, I think I'll get a lady to come and check your bags with you. And I went, carried on chatting to her, and she said, I've got to ask, what do you do? And that was it. I was at security for ages talking to her. And the other women were coming over and, oh, my daughter's interested in having a water birth. That's how you get our profession out there. And for me, in that situation, it was a specialism. And I always, always, always have at least 3 business cards in my phone. Always. So one comes out, another one goes straight in.
So
that's
a great tip, Dan. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk much about the cards, business cards. So would you get those professionally printed or do them yourself?
I get mine professionally printed by the same printers and branding company that I use for quite a lot of things. Business cards are not expensive, but you do need them, and you need to say your name and your qualifications and a line about what you do with your contact details on. That's all it needs, although some people on the back of their business cards will put a tiny 2-sentence summary of their services or something like that. And then you just hand those out when you meet people. Take them to midwifery conferences, take them to Ladies Who Latte or whatever you want to do, and get the word out there. Tell people that you're there and that you're available.
Yeah. And I picked that up years ago. The first ICM I went to was 1990 in Japan. And I can remember everybody I met came up and with great honour gave you their business
Oh,
cards.
wow. Oh, this is the new one, Diane.
Oh, this is a new one,
That's
yeah,
very
with my new
smart.
branding, yes, and details of me on the other
Fabulous.
side. And that was my trigger, even when I really was not doing much except just some local, but I thought business cards, and they've developed over the years, but that's definitely where I first started, because it was such a the Japanese, I mean, Denise works a lot in Japan, but they are so honored to do that to you.
Yes.
And so if that's that image, I will never forget them. 1990, I can remember the ladies coming up, bowing and giving me their business card. So that was it. I thought, if they can do it, I can definitely do it. So yes.
You see, that's something that we, as every midwife and every student, can be doing, because from what Dan was saying, I remember going to a conference one time and I ended up jotting things with scraps of paper, and then the next one I did some little cards so I could share.
Yeah.
And that's something, if you haven't got a business, those contact details are still really important, because it saves you scrabbling around with bits of paper. And also, if you're giving someone a card, they'll give you one back, and you get to know people. It's a really good way of networking through.
I also think, Sue, that midwives may not yet be ready to go into business, but you might have a conversation at a conference with somebody about a particular area of interest that you have, and they listen to what you've got to say, and having that business card there, they may contact you. And specialisms have to start somewhere. It doesn't matter how inexperienced you are, because you're going to gain experience and you can develop expertise in a particular area. But if you're not telling people, then there's no sort of movement forward, really, is there?
No, this is marketing self. Fabulous. Thank you.
Yes.
Now we've only got a few more questions. I've got Emma. Hi, Emma. Emma says, I'm interested in the business training, please. So I think you'll find the details on the link in the resources, but otherwise just send Denise a little email.
Yeah. And if you want to have a chat by Zoom, to discuss your sort of career options and whether business is for you, then just email me or contact me via the website, and we can arrange to have a chat with no obligation, and see what you want to do, really.
Fabulous. You're so kind. That's lovely. And then we've got Claire. Hi, Claire. Claire is saying, any advice regarding insurance? Because I know that in the past that's been a huge thing, and that's been linked up, I think, with the independent midwives. I mean, this is slightly different now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Di, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, the RCM, who I belong to, cover me for my education that I do in this country. And they would also cover me at the moment. I need to look into the design stage, although we do have not a disclaimer, but on the contract we would be signing with people that this is just a plan. What they do with it is up to them. So yeah, my business colleague certainly is working on that. From the legal point of view, I have private insurance legally. I'll give you an idea. It's about £390 a year just for the legal work I do.
I think it's important to recognise as well, the Royal College of Midwives doesn't provide personal professional indemnity insurance. They actually provide medical malpractice insurance because of the high risk area of birth. But if you're going into business, the Royal College of Nursing or the Federation of Antenatal Educators will cover you for many elements that you may want to offer in private practice. The only advice I would give is you should really continue your Royal College of Midwives insurance, if you've had that, for retrospective cases, because if you are no longer insured with them and a previous case comes to court, then you don't have any protection. It's a minefield, insurance. And then the other thing, which isn't compulsory but advisable, especially if you become a bigger business, is public liability. So professional indemnity protects you and your practice, and public liability protects the premises in which you work, whether that's parents' own homes, your home, or a clinic or whatever.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much. I think we need to. I always say this is the quickest hour in the week, and it really has flown by, and it's been fantastic. And I've learned a lot, including the ladies' latte. I love that, and also the succession planning business. and presentation. So thank you so much to Diane and Denise for joining us this evening. Fantastic. Also, thank you to Angelo for moving the slides, but also he's making sure everything's beautifully recorded so you'll be able to access it after this evening. And I would recommend you maybe share it with your colleagues and have a chat about it, because there's a lot of material that Denise and Diane have been talking about, which is important if you want to start a business or if you want to market yourself, because we need to be marketing ourselves.
Yeah.
So do share, and we like you to share. There's no rules about you mustn't share this. As soon as you get it, share it with your colleagues. There's also a podcast on the Friday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning that I know many people like to use. I used to, doing the running and everything, but that's another story. So also next week we've got same time, same place. We've got How Babies Sleep, and that's from birth towards the first year. And we've got Professor Helen Ball and Stephanie Michaelides talking. So we're going to be looking at the newborn baby and onwards. So this is going to be very useful for those of you midwives and also mums, because you'll get some ideas about the anthropological aspects of baby sleep, and you'll understand why babies do what they do, which will help you help mums, which would be fab. Now, also, we've got the Manchester Festival coming up on the 8th of July. And we've also got on the 18th of June a student midwife briefing from 1 to 2 online, which some of you will find very useful. And in the meantime, stay safe and well, and we'll see you next week. And thank you again to our lovely Diane and Denise. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
We have had a 40% caesarean section rate in the National Maternity Hospital. That is major abdominal surgery.
Around 40,000 mums did not return to work in 2022. It's even more relevant if you're a mum who's experienced birth trauma.
We spend more money on litigation than we currently spend on the maternity services. It's bonkers.
That it's in all of our interests, and particularly the government, to improve maternity services.
We can't achieve our mission unless we bring parents and professionals together.
A revolution needs to happen. We need to start working together.
I know it's a hard time, but for goodness sake, it's the best profession in the world.
Be proud to be midwives, be proud of the job that we do, and continue to celebrate our successes.
Midwives make a difference to women every single day, and let's not lose that. It's more important than anything.